Welcome to Inside of the Pleasure Studio podcast, where we strip down truths and bear it all as we get real about all things sex, intimacy, and relationships with oneself, another, and the world around us, celebrating the joy of being fully alive and exploring what it means to live a life rich with passion. Every episode, we confront the conventional and break open the cages of censorship as we explore the untamed and often unspoken aspects of intimacy, cutting through the bullshit as we challenge sexual norms and provide you with the unvarnished truth about what it takes to have a fulfilling sex life. So if you're ready to dive into honest and very often provocative conversations that empower and enlighten, you've come to the right place. I am Melissa Louise, your wild host, bringing to you fearless honesty on this unapologetic journey as we talk about sex, love, and life in ways that are smart, fearless, and fun. Because, lover, this is not just about pleasure. It is a fucking revolution. Lovers, hello, and welcome to this week's juicy video inside of the Pleasure Studio. And as a certified erotic blueprint coach, I am so excited for this series of videos that I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks, probably about 5-6 weeks, actually, really diving into the erotic blueprints, what they are, and diving into each blueprint individually. What I really love and what I find so profound about the erotic blueprints, if you haven't heard of them before, is that it gives us a language to speak about our eroticism. If you were fortunate enough to receive any sort of sexual education at all, and if you actually have a look in all of the advertising that's around us, all of the messaging that is given to us, even if we look at movies, TV shows, comic books, anything that has two humans interacting sexually or sensually, sex is portrayed as this kind of cookie cutter type act. It's pretty simple. It's A plus B, and this is how it happens. When we look into our erotic blueprints, we get to understand that there is so much more involved in our arousal, in our eroticism. And the image that we are often given, or the blueprint that we're given by culture, by society, keeps us really separate from actually what is truly happening in our body. So an erotic blueprint, I love to explain, is the language, just like love languages are, how we give and receive love. Who was the guy? I can't remember the guy's name. I know he was a priest that came up with the love languages. The erotic blueprints is that language on how to ask, how to speak, and how to play in our eroticism. So just as there's 5 love languages, which are, gifts. Oh my goodness, now that I've decided to say these out loud, we have words of affirmation, we have touch, we have gifts, we have acts of service. And the 5th one, acts of service, touch. You can tell I'm just doing this live, as in like not cut and cornered. My goodness, what are they? Acts of service, touch, words of affirmation, gifts. And where's the 5th one? I've had a huge blank. This is me. I'm raw and real. So what the gentleman that came up with the 5 love languages, he was able to pinpoint that, we give and receive languages differently. And there's 5 of these languages. So for example, if you have someone who love language is touch, and they are with someone whose love language is acts of service. So the person whose love language is touch, when they receive touch, they feel loved. They will also be giving in their love language. So would they be touching their partner, expressing, this is how I love you. I adore you. I love you. I'm so into you because I'm touching you. Now, someone who's quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts, and touch. So someone whose love language is acts of service, where they will be, putting petrol in their lover's car and their partner's car. They'll make sure that if the light globe goes out, they'll just go and replace the light globe. If they see something needs fixing in the house, they'll sort that out. If they know that their partner has got a really long day, so they get lunch delivered, or they make lunch and they make sure that their partner goes to work with lunch, or they make sure that they had a long day, that they come home and there's food on the table. Now, the person whose acts of service is their love language, all of these acts that they're thinking about all the time, they're making sure that are happening, saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. Now, the person whose touch is love languages, and they're not receiving touch, will be in their own experience going, I'm not loved, they don't love me. So if we don't speak about these things, if we don't, have conversations and understand how we give and receive love, we can walk around inside of our relationships assuming that our partner does not like us or doesn't love us. And these are the things that chip away. Now, coming to the erotic blueprints, this is the same in our eroticism. So the blueprints describe, or they give you a language on how your nervous system tritates to turn on. So they're in, just as there's 5 love languages, which I landed finally, they're the 5 erotic blueprints. And these are not in a hierarchical order as I say them out loud. So there's energetic, there's sensual, there's sexual, there's kink, and there's shapeshifter. So as you can imagine, if you have someone, if you're in a relationship with someone whose erotic blueprint is kinky, and we're going to go into the shadows and the superpowers of them in a moment, but you are energetic, then as you can imagine, if that person is, wanting to try all of these things with you, they're in their blueprint, creating all of these experiences. It also depends if they're psychological or touch-based kink. Then you as an energetic can feel quite overwhelmed, could be feeling like it's way too much and shut down. Now, the energetic's nervous system will shut down if there hasn't been a conversation, if things happen too quickly, and that'll get explained in a moment. So then we have a missing. We can also have judgment. We can also be quite shut down in asking for our needs to be met and feeling that we are strange, feeling there's something wrong with it, especially when we're looking at, the energetic and the kinky blueprints, these sort of 2 polarized blueprints. They work very well together. And when I say polarized, it's both of these blueprints have a superpower that's so steeped in having energetic orgasms, having orgasms completely clothed, depending on what's happening. Now, the erotic blueprints, just as the love language crosses, over into our work life, into our friendships, into the way that we actualize our lives. So just as, if you do the love language quiz, there's, love language for children. It's how we get to be curious on how our children, and even, we can do it in friendships. Yeah, even asking when we have new friendships, asking what their love language is really profound. Because if you have a friend that's, means so much to you, and that their love language is gifts, you're always, going to be giving gifts. If it's acts of service, you would be cooking them food. If it's words of affirmation, you'd be sending beautiful, messages every second day or during the week, on the weekend. When you see them walk up to you and they look so beautiful, you would tell them how beautiful they look, how gorgeous that dress looks on them, or how great that shirt is, or you have, telling them how they make an incredible impact on your life. So it's the same with the blueprints. When you're in a workspace, when you start understanding what the blueprints look like and what they mean, you can start to, sort of clock what the people that you work with, where their arousal lies in their nervous system. Now, this is not about crossing boundaries and being able to, be sexually involved with your work colleagues. You can clock on what really makes them feel comfortable. Now, this is not about manipulation either, but if you say someone is energetic and you are on a project with someone who's energetic. Now, an energetic's nervous system will close down really quickly if someone's too close to them, if they weren't expecting to have to be in that space. So if you notice that you are having, conversations with someone, and there's someone that you're working with and you need to get stuff done, you've got to talk about the projects, you've got to, really get onto it about what's happening that week, what the projections are, what needs to be sorted out. But the person that you're speaking to feels like they're kind of closed off or they're holding their breath, then maybe taking a step back is something that you could do, and just be really curious of what you notice happens. Because if you're standing too close, or if you're speaking too fast, or if there's, like 2 or 3 of you standing around and this one person just feels like they're concentrating on listening, or they feel like they're really uptight, then they may well be an energetic. And so giving them more space, like stepping back, slowing your voice down, only having one person speaking at a time instead of, some people can really handle 2, 3 people speaking. It's like, yep, got that, boom, boom, boom. But an energetic may find that really overwhelming because their nervous system is short-circuiting. So this is where it works out in your family and in work arenas. It also can really support if you want to make someone feel really safe and want to really have them coming into a conversation with you. If someone's central, then I have this theory that most interior designers are central. But you could check out, with people's workspaces are like. I mean, I don't know if so many people go into work so much anymore, but you could, like, going to someone's home, if the home where all of the color schemes are set up and you walk in and you just feel like, oh my God, it's such a beautiful space to be in where the plants are. I'm a shapeshifter. So for me, it's like all of the central goes off, the energetic goes off, like everything goes off. A shapeshifter is the blueprint where you're able to really excel in all of the blueprints, where you can move into all of the blueprints. It also means you have the shadow of all of the blueprints. So when you go into someone's house and everything's beautifully set up, the candles are going, everything looks like it's in place, there's beautiful music, everything's really tidy, the sage is going off, or you can smell some incense, or maybe they have scented candles, then if there was something really really important you needed to speak to someone that you're working with or a dear friend of yours, then you would invite them to a beautiful lunch where everything's really set up and they're looking at the ocean, or they're sitting in the back. There's a beautiful couch. All my friends are all, if ever we go out to dinner together or lunch together, and there's a table with a day bed or a couch, there was like, oh, we're sitting at that table, and like, Melissa, sit on the couch, because I love it. If I'm, as you can tell, sitting on a really comfortable seat, if I'm about to eat food, I want to see what everything looks like. I want to try everything and move things around. If the table setting is really beautiful, I'm really happy. I can't just go and eat food just anywhere. I will always be looking at, is there a better place that I could be sitting? Can I be looking at a view? Can I go and sit next to those plants? Oh my God, can you light the candle? Thank you. Now, for me as a customer, in my central, if I'm going to go and sit at a table at a restaurant, that was 2 words said at once, at a restaurant, and the waiter is gorgeous, but if the waiter lights the candle, if the waiter brings me a glass of water or a tea or something to start things off, and even ask, do you want ice? Like, no, if it's served in a beautiful glass instead of just a normal glass, if there's an opportunity for a better glass to be chosen, if there's a little nibble that I could, nibble on whilst I'm looking at the menu, if they check in, is this table a really good table for you? Would you prefer to be looking at the view? And let me, these people are about to finish. How about you start here and you look at the menu? I'll bring you a glass of water. And as soon as these people have left, I'll clean the table and I'll shift you there. I am going to tip like it nothing else. I mean, that is service, but also looking at the sensual, where all of those things mean a lot. The candle's lit. There's a beautiful plant at the table. There's something to begin with. The glass, they've placed attention. So if you are doing a business deal with someone that, you notice is really well dressed, if you have had a chance to sort of know their surroundings, and you would choose somewhere beautiful, somewhere that really attunes to their senses. So understanding the erotic blueprints is really profound, not just for your relationship. Now, where it really works in your relationship, why would you want to know your erotic blueprint and your partner's erotic blueprint? Is you are opening the arena of your eroticism 100-fold. It also creates these beautiful bridges that you get to invite one another over. You do not need to. I often get asked this, especially when I start working with couples, do we need to be the same erotic blueprint for our relationship to work? Hell no. Hell no. Because now you get to open your whole erotic world to your partner's erotic world, just as they get to open their world to yours, that you have a great, a larger playground to play in. Even if you are the same erotic blueprint, then you have 4 other blueprints to go and play in. It's like you want to go and try Thai food, you want to try Ethiopian food, you want to go and give that Japanese restaurant, this Italian restaurant, like you're always trying different foods, just as you would try different arenas to play in your eroticism. Everything is information and curiosity. This is another thing around sex, is this sense that we have to get it right, that if we don't get it right, then it's embarrassment or it's shame-filled or there's something guilty. And yet with everything else, when we try a new sport, we understand when we start lifting more weights, if we're going to start going to the gym, we know that we start in an arena where we're not so well versed in it, but then we become more well versed in whatever we're doing. It is the same thing with sex. It's the same thing with erotic blueprints. So if you are a certain erotic blueprint and you're in a relationship where it feels like your partner is turning you down more, seems to not be so interested in intimacy with you or sex with you, then I would dare say it has a lot to do with the sex that's on offer. Now, when we don't understand that it is on offer, that can sometimes be a really fucking hard pill to swallow. But when we first get together, when 2 people first get together, there's all of this adrenaline and dopamine that actually allows us to move through crossing over our boundaries. Now, I'm not talking about violence. I'm not talking about, things happening against our will at all when I'm speaking about that. But especially when we look at, the feminine body, is that our body will like a man can penetrate, when we're talking about P and V, a woman when she's not 100% aroused. It's a bit more difficult for a man to penetrate a woman when his penis is flaccid. And yet a woman's body can be half aroused, 3/4 aroused, 80% aroused, and still receive penetration. When we hear the statement a lot by women saying, I don't have an orgasm through penetration, where our body is designed for so many orgasms with penetration, without penetration as well. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, erotic blueprints is often not part of, people's sexual education. If someone's energetic, if someone's sensual, if someone's kinky, but they're just engaging in one type of blueprint, the sexual blueprint, if sex is kind of A plus B plus C, and this is what happens, and yet the blueprint requires a lot more, and they're in an arena through arousal of adrenaline and dopamine because they're so into their partner, then over time, the body's just kind of really numbed out, and parts of the body is numbed out. It's like, it's just not really doing it for me anymore. And there's a lot of part where, if we're really listening to our bodies, it wasn't 100% after a certain amount of time doing it back then either, but we were sort of playing through the motions. Someone was playing through the motions. Now, this is not a judgment. This is expected in culture. It's most people run on this kind of framework. So where the erotic blueprint comes in, what is so exciting is when we understand what our blueprint is, and I'm going to put the link to do your quiz down below. When we understand what our blueprint is, it gives us a language to have boundaries and to have invitation. So if you are in this situation where you're in partnership and the person that you're with seems to be a bit more distant or is not, not really wanting to come to sex that so often, I would highly recommend doing the quiz, finding out what erotic blueprints you are, and start learning about each other's erotic blueprints. Because our bodies will create a protection and a numbness, and especially a female's, a woman's pussy, her vagina, the inward world, her inner world, her universe will create protection and numbness, which is, when I say easy, it is designed for the layers to come undone. There's so many things around this, around sacred pussy massage, sacred cock massage we have. But when we're looking at the blueprints, if your woman is energetic or she is sensual, there's, things that you can start doing where her nervous system becomes more open because it's tritate. I love this word, tritating. It's not very well known. I've received this word from the Erotic Blueprint community. And I love it. It's tritating. To what I understand is it's step by step. So if your partner, and not all women are energetic and sensual, it often comes up that, men will be sexual and women will be everything else. Men will be kinky and sexual and women will be energetic and sensual. It is not the case. We will look at what we arrive to in turn-ons because we believe it's expected and acceptable. So yes, many men, in my experience, I have not worked with 8 billion people in the world. Is it 8 or billion? Million or billion? But I haven't worked with every single person in the world. So, but what I do see is that generally when the quiz first gets taken, when I work with clients, when we start off, many, many men will show that they're a sexual blueprint straight off. And then 1 month in, a couple of months in, they'll do the blueprint again and it shifts. It's more true. I'm not saying by doing the blueprint quiz right now, it's not going to be true, but also check how you're answering the questions. If you're answering the questions of that's acceptable, I should like that, really challenge yourself. There is also the quiz. There's a free quiz and then there's a $17 quiz. I highly recommend getting the $17 quiz because it's more in depth. Doing that one, your results will be more in depth. Here, I'm going to be spending so much time going through adventure dates, how to play in the blueprints. Yeah, how to in each individual blueprint, how to create great invitations. And in the month live class that we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff. So I would recommend doing the $17 quiz. You're very welcome just to do the free one and peruse in here and get what you need to. But what I invite you to is to really answer the questions truthfully. Do it in private if you feel sort of a little bit under the pressure doing it next to your partner. But when we look at how we answer questions to what we believe is should be the correct answer to actually what's deeply within us, we get to sort of we get to question that. So what was I speaking about? Going back to, so yes, so when you realize that your partner is a different blueprint to you, then these invitations get to open up. So a woman who is energetic, or a man who's energetic, woman or man who's energetic, receiving touch straight away when they're not expecting it, or when someone is really close to them, through protection, the nervous system will shut down. Like shut down, close off, become protective, which means they will move away, which means they need to get space. The sensual blueprints shadow, if something is messy, if the music changes, this is just a few, I'm going to go deeper into them each week. then, or if they can't switch their brain off, if they've forgotten to send an email or something, or they feel like they don't look good enough, or, oh my God, the smells are going to come up, then their nervous system will shut down. Suddenly the orgasm will go away. Going into kinky blueprint, there will be shame around what their desires are because of the way that our culture and society looks at kink. But there's a really beautiful opening when we go deeply into the kink. Oh, that's a pun if there ever was one. So this is where the profoundness of doing your understanding what your kinky blueprint is. I'm having a bit of trouble speaking today, aren't I? So that is the power of understanding your kinky blueprint. Your kinky blueprint. Please understand how kinky you are, understanding your erotic blueprint. The down below, I'm going to put the quiz for the blueprints. I'm also going to put the quiz for love languages. I don't have any affiliate with this guy. In fact, actually, in my oracle cards, he did not want to be mentioned, and he did not want me to use that. Just on a line. He's a priest, and well, I mean, assuming he still is. Bless his heart. But I think it's if you do not know what your love language is, or what your partner's love language is, it is really, really necessary. When I work with clients and they understand these two things, the erotic blueprint and the love languages, so many things shift just in understanding, like even before we do any coaching around it. I want to give a really beautiful example. I was working with a couple a few years ago. This is on love languages. This is on love languages. And so I'll give one with love languages and one with the erotic blueprints. I'm working with this beautiful couple. And his love language was quality time. Hers was touch. So on a Sunday for him, sitting down watching a movie with his beloved, sitting on the couch, he was so satisfied, so happy, so satisfied. For her, sitting next to her beloved on the couch watching a movie, she's sitting because she's not being touched. I think words of affirmation is also a part of her love language. So he's really happy, sharing popcorn, watching the movie. She's next to him, happy as a pig in shit, really. She is not. She's pissed. She feels ignored. I say pissed. I think I'm exaggerating here. She felt really ignored. She feels really separate, not satisfied at all. And then, of course, her body language. Then she's really shutting down towards her partner because he's not touching her. No words of affirmation. Once they did the love language test and understood this, the conversation, like when I was on call with them, and this beautiful conversation of what what it looks like for them in their love language, it was so beautiful. And so the next Sundays, like, of course he would put his arm around her. Of course she can lay on his lap. Of course he's like, gonna touch her and run through. It was just the game changer. When I've worked with clients around the erotic blueprint, where, he's sensual and she's energetic, just the beautiful steps to go towards his partner really made a difference for them. So she needed, like, she was working at home, he would be coming home. She needed a notice, she needed a text message that he was on his way home, so she could, okay, he's on his way home, that he didn't just walk to the door and go up and touch her and hug her. He walks in, he wants to touch his partner. And then also too, if she needed some more space, when he came towards her, she could put her hand, what really worked for them was she put her hand on his chest, so there's space, but he's receiving touch, so he could hold her hand on his heart and they could eye gaze and just deep breathe. And so what she requested from him was to really slow his breath down. He had the biggest grin on his face, slowing his breath down, eye gazing, so her system could just settle and really come into sync with her beloved's nervous system. And when she was ready, she could, pull him in for a hug. Now, his needs being met because he's being touched, and the ability to respond appropriately. His needs being met because he can see her, he can touch her, but he's also taking care of her need to have some space, but he's a part of that. And the eye gazing for her, just the silence, and the eye gazing and this spaciousness and the deep breath allowed her nervous system to drop down. And then when she was ready, pulled in for a big, juicy hug and a kiss. So as you can see, when we understand our lovers, our beloveds and our partners, and our own erotic blueprint, as well as love languages, so many misunderstandings or assumptions can be disintegrated, can be completely dissolved, and we get to really open up our whole eroticism where we get to play. So I hope this video has been really inspiring for you. I hope you do go down and do your erotic blueprint and your love languages if you haven't done them before. And if you are one of my Juicy paid subscribers, I will see you in a moment. And if not, I will be back here next week. Until then, always with pleasure, and fill your life with pleasure. Lover, you have been inside of the Pleasure Studio, where all things intimate are up for discussion. Thanks for getting real with me today, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If this conversation sparks something within you, do not hesitate to share it by emailing me via the link below. If you're not already, you can follow my good tush on the social media handles also below, and make sure to hit subscribe. Tune in next time for more truths about pleasure and passion. Until then, stay bold, courageous, and truthful as you explore your pleasure your way.